is Harrison Gregory. I live in Brazoria, Texas. I am homeschooled. When we're doing the Pledge of Allegiance, what does republic mean and where did it come from?
Harrison, that was a great question on what is a republic. Well, a republic is a government without a king. It's ruled by the citizens. So citizen is a Greek word which means co-ruler, co-sovereign, co-king. So a republic is a bottom-up form of government where the people rule themselves versus a king, which is a top-down form of government. Kings are the norm throughout world history. And whether it's Nimrod, Pharaoh, Caesar, Kaiser, Sultan, Tsar, it's a top-down form of government, very similar to a gang. So a king, in a sense, is a glorified gang leader. A republic, as well as a democracy, are attempts for people to rule themselves bottom up without a king. So what's the difference between a republic and a democracy? Well, the word democracy has two meanings. One is a general reference to the people ruling themselves. And so we'll see that often used in lots of different ways. And that's sort of like Harry S. Truman's inaugural address, where he contrasts democracy versus communism. But as an actual form of government, a democracy, like in Athens, is where every citizen had to be at every meeting every day to talk about every issue. Totally time consuming. No time for anything else. And if you did not keep up with what they're talking about today, you're called an idiotus, an idiot. Where a republic, you take care of your family and your farm, and you have someone in your place that goes to the market every day. They are your representative. An easy way to remember this is the word republic begins with R-E-P and the word representative begins with R-E-P. So a Republican form of government is where the people are in charge. They're just ruling through representatives. And because you didn't have to be there every day, republics could get larger. So the first instance in world history of a republic was ancient Israel. Around 1400 BC to 1000 BC, they came out of Egypt, and for 400 years, there's no king. It's the first well-recorded instance of millions of people and no king. Every person, male and female, was made in the image of the Creator, and so everyone was equal. So this is different because where there's a king, if you're friends with the king, you're more equal. If you're not friends with the king, you're less equal. If you're an enemy of the king, you're dead. It's called treason. But in Israel, everyone was made in the image of God. Even the non-Israelites were under the same law. This was unique. And in Israel, the land was permanently titled to each family. And if you got in a pinch and sold it, every 50 years, the land reverts back to your family. If you own land, you can accumulate stuff. The Bible called that being blessed. And you can give away some of your stuff. The Bible called that charity. Israel had a bureaucracy-free welfare system. What's that? Well, in Egypt, if you needed food, the government would give you food, but in exchange for your cattle, your land, your lives. But in ancient Israel, you needed food. People harvested their field. They would leave the corners, the gleanings of the field for the poor people to pick through, like Ruth. So the poor were taken care of, but in a decentralized manner. In ancient Israel, everyone was taught to read. Did you know only 1% of Egypt could read? Reading and writing was the scribes' secret knowledge. But in ancient Israel, everybody could read. And since everybody could read, they were all taught the law. And they all helped enforce the law. So there was no police. The verse everyone knows, love your neighbor as yourself. The verse right before it says, confront your neighbor directly so you will not be held guilty for their sin. So they're loving each other, but they're confronting each other. Israel had swift justice. There were no prisons. They had no standing army. Every man was in the militia and armed with a sword upon their thigh and ready at a moment's notice to defend their family and community. Israel, people got to choose their own leaders. Exodus 18, thou shalt provide out of all the people able men, such as fear God, men of truth, hating covetousness. So the Hebrews were the model for the Puritans, and the Puritans settled New England, and that became the model for our republic in America. And so we have a bottom-up form of government versus a top-down form of government with a king. And so when we pledge allegiance to the flag and to the republic, we're basically pledging allegiance to us being in charge of ourselves. The citizens are the king. king, it's a republic, and the citizens are in charge. So when somebody protests the flag, what they're effectively saying is they don't want to be the king anymore. I protest this system of government where the people rule themselves. Okay, well, what's the alternative to that? Well, I guess they don't rule themselves, which means you're going back to a king and he's ruling you without your permission. So when churches tell people not to get involved in politics and not to vote, they're telling the king to be irresponsible, to be negligent, to be lazy. And when that happens, you get ambitious people in charge and they will usurp power and go back to wanting to rule top down. So in a republic, the citizens are the king, and they don't just have the right to vote, they'll be held accountable to God for what happens. Well, I hope this helps to understand what a republic is. God bless you.